Coming up in 1 minute on the Jackin Around podcast.
And so just seeing Todd that one time just kind of blew my mind. And I basically spent the last 20 years like racking my brain, like how could we figure something out for film and television that captures that magic that he has and kind of tries to bring it to audiences in a different, kind of way. That whole scene in the bar at the end is like basically modeled after To Beat the Devil and Ballad of the Devil's Backbone Tavern, Todd's song. So like I took those two.
Yeah, come over here, you little punk. Or
yeah, you little shit. Yeah, that's from Todd's song, Old Miss Virgie. Meet with Todd. He was like asking, if we wanted him to be in it and, that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, yes, we'd love for you to be in the movie. But I was thinking we'll cast, an actor who can play music because this is a big, heavy lift from an acting standpoint. He's like, good, because I don't think I could do it. But Jack Ingram, he studied acting. He would be someone you should consider.
Well, I love it that Todd's pitching me for movies, though. That's good. Well, man, the movie's fantastic.
Thank you.
A guy like me, it's one of my best friend's songs.
Absolutely.
And it's like, once I started watching about halfway through, it's like, this is for real.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah.
The music is integrated into it. The Hayes Carl song comes out of nowhere. Like, there's just all kinds.
This is the Jackin Around podcast, hosted by two-time Academy of Country Music Award winner Jack Ingram. And now, here's Jack.
The Jackin Around podcast is brought to you by Lone Star Dry Goods, a collection of handcrafted quality goods with a truly unique Americana vibe. Visit the world headquarters in the heart of downtown Abilene, Texas, and Willow Park, Texas, in Fort Worth. Visit LoneStarDryGoods.com for more information. Welcome to the Jackin Around podcast, available on your favorite audio platforms and in video on YouTube. For links and info, visit JackinAroundPodcast.com. So, man, how did you get involved with Todd?
So, just to kind of go back to the very beginning, I'm born and raised in Austin and kind of grew up around the kind of roots music scene. Yeah. I was born in an unair-conditioned house in Clarksville, probably a couple blocks away from, if you've seen Heartworn Highways, you've seen Towns Van Zandt carrying on in that trailer house in the 70s in Austin. I was born literally in the late 70s in a house a couple blocks from there. And my mom is this like bohemian kind of poet who was friends with a bunch of the musicians from that time frame. So her best friends, Bobby Nelson and Martin Wigginton, ran the Split Rail and the Alamo Lounge and this place called Emma Joe's. And so when I was like a little kid, I was
Bobby Nelson,
not Willie's sister, Bobby Nelson, but same name. Her and Martin Wigginton ran these singer-songwriter joints that were in the late 70s and into the 80s. And I was like literally like a little 5-year-old kid watching Towns Van Zandt, Lucinda Williams, and Butch Hancock and Jimmy Gilmore and Joe Ely and all those people play. So I've been kind of in and around the roots music scene for all my life, basically. And my mom would read poems before some of these people would play and stuff like that. And Butch Hancock is my sister's godfather. And my mom's known Jimmy Gilmore since like the 60s and stuff like that. So just kind of grew up around that. And we would go to Kerrville and, go to Willie Nelson's 4th of July picnics growing up. And she would have house concerts too. So we'd have some, killer music at the house, real bohemian kind of stuff from, the kind of heyday of that singer or songwriter scene.
Right. Like the you're talking about the scene that made Austin what it is.
Exactly. So I've always had a long, kind of history around the music and just loved it. I'm a big music fan in general, fairly genre agnostic, but I really love Americana and roots music. So I probably first saw Todd late 90s, I would think, maybe late 90s probably. And you may have been on the bill. It was a Robert Earl Keen Memorial Day thing at the backyard. There were a bunch of bands. I can't remember for sure if you were on the bill or not, but I know Charlie Robinson definitely was. It was around that.
I might have been.
It was around that same time that you guys were kind of doing the Sony Lucky Dog kind of stuff or whatever.
Yeah, and Robert was doing those Revolution kind of, I forget what he called them.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. Texas Uprising maybe or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was, Joe Ely played, Wylie Hubbard, just, kind of murderer's row of people. And it was, everyone had played, it'd been an amazing show. Robert Earl hadn't gone on yet. And this little skinny, barefoot, hippie, gypsy troubadour comes out by himself with the acoustic guitar and a harmonica, no shoes on.
Yeah.
And just rocked the place and played maybe only 4 or 5 songs or something like that. Told some funny little stories. And I had never seen anything quite like that, you know?
Yeah. Me neither.
Yeah. And they broke the mold with him for sure.
Yeah.
So I was mesmerized kind of, and I'd heard some of his music before, some of those earlier albums, a little bit more, full band and kind of,
right.
a little different, but they're really
songs
great.
of the Daily Planet.
Yeah. Some of those. Yeah. Step Right Up.
Step Right Up.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah.
That's right about when I met him too.
Yeah. And those were all great. And I'd heard some of them, but I wasn't like super, super familiar until I saw him that one time do that thing. And I was like, and just the way he can kind of connect with the audience by himself like that. I had never really seen anybody kind of command it quite like that. I mean, a lot of people do the solo acoustic thing and do it really well, but there was something just so kind of how his stories are integrated into his songs in a way that I've never seen anybody quite pull off. The punchlines and just the timing, the comic timing, and just the general kind of glow and vibe that he has is kind of so unique. And so I was just kind of floored and mesmerized and just became a huge kind of fan at that point. And like I said,
so that's 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Yeah.
Over 20 years.
Yeah. About right around this 20-year, mark. So I've been a huge fan ever since. And I was kind of like, I had mentioned to you before, I had from Austin, grew up around the music scene, moved away to New York, went to film school at NYU, and then kind of came back here. And I was doing some film and television stuff here, doing mostly like commercials and stuff for a company that was here. But then was also kind of helping out, really into music and helping out some friends of mine who had some bands kind of back at that point.
Right.
And, so we were in that circuit going to see a lot of those kind of roots Americana bands and so Texas kind of music stuff a lot. And I was really into that scene, which I still am. And so just seeing Todd that one time just kind of blew my mind. And I basically spent the last 20 years like racking my brain, like how could we figure something out for film and television that captures that magic that he has and kind of tries to bring it to audiences in a different, kind of way.
Yeah. Well, you did.
Thank you.
It's really, so how did you come up with the concept of taking a song?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I have these two kind of real creative passions of mine. I don't play any music at all. I'm just a fan and, soak up as much of it as possible. But these two kind of creative passions of mine are film and music. And so I hadn't ever thought about this idea of adapting like this until this spark hit. We were watching him at Hog Auditorium. I live in LA these days, but I come back to Austin quite a bit. And we were at Hog Auditorium. You actually came out and played with them.
Oh, that's right.
It was about maybe 5 years ago.
Right there on campus.
Yeah, exactly. And my producing partner is my wife, Allison, and we were down the road on another movie that I had written. It was kind of a detective noir kind of thing set in Texas. And we were down the road doing that. But we were watching this Todd show and he started playing the first few kind of bars of this song, said Coke machine glowing through the parking lot. And I turned to her and I said, hey, remind me to tell you of a just spark of an idea that just occurred to me after the show. And so she kind of rolled her eyes a little bit because I'm constantly saying, oh, we should do this. Oh, we should do that. Or here's this idea, that idea.
Right.
As creative people often do.
Yeah.
But then like after the show, we went and like got a beer somewhere on campus or something, maybe the Hole in the Wall or something like that. And I just kind of walked her through like, hey, I think this could happen. This could happen. This could happen. It's one of the reasons I kind of thought of it was it's pretty contained the story, right? It all takes place at the motel in the song.
Right.
And so we were trying to figure, this other movie was a little bit bigger and a little bit harder, bigger lift to get off the ground. And so I was like, oh, this thing's a little bit more contained. We could maybe do something kind of more simplified. But the framework for all this other interesting stuff is in the song. He's got these lines where he just, even in, like he says a couple, won a tournament down in Oklahoma City last week, hustled half this town tonight. That's almost all he says about pool playing in the song.
Right.
But there's so much backstory. I'm like, wait, tap the brakes. How did you get from that to where you are in this rundown motel? Like, what happened? How did you hustle the people? What happened? Who are the people that were involved? Who did you cross paths with? All that kind of stuff. So it just got my kind of gears spinning on like, oh wait, there's these
those lines that have backstory.
So much backstory. Yeah, exactly. So there's an economy of songwriting, obviously, where you don't have to tell all that kind of backstory. You just like drop, a phrase here or a phrase there or a couple lines here, and you kind of, the audience kind of uses their imagination to kind of fill that in. And I guess as a filmmaker, I kind of sort of did the same thing. I was like, oh, he mentions what happens before he gets to the motel. It's the pool playing and this other stuff. And then like, kind of interpretation of what's going to happen after they leave this motel. And, so the idea was like, well, if he's out hustling people, there's probably some chickens are going to come home to roost at some point, I would think. So.
That's great, man. Did you have to get his permission?
Totally. Yeah. So, within 2 weeks, I had like a full on treatment and lookbook, kind of pitch together for what the story could be. Got in touch with Bert, his manager. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know Todd personally. I met him a couple of times here and there, just at shows and, mutual friends here and there and stuff like that. But didn't know him at all personally. But I reached out to Bert and introduced myself and just kind of gave him a little bit of the backstory of kind of who I am, where I'm coming from. And told him that I had this idea. Would they be interested? And they said, yeah, it'd be really interesting. I said, okay, great. Maybe I can sit down with Todd sometime soon and kind of pitch it to him. And we kicked around a couple dates that were on because he was on tour at the time. We kicked around a couple dates and they were like, well, he's going to be in Portland doing 3 nights at the Aladdin Theater. And since he's going to be in one place for a couple of days, that would probably be a good place to do it. So I think within a month of having the idea at the Hog Auditorium, the time that you guys played there, I was on a plane to Portland, sitting down with Todd in a house that they had rented for him to stay at for the week or whatever. He was seeing old friends and stuff
that's
like
right.
that.
He's from there.
Yeah. And pitched him the idea. And he was pretty much instantly was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. So,
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So it was, and as he tells in his stories, people, I'm sure this happens to you all the time. It happens in the film industry all the time. People come up to you at shows and they're like, hey, I want to do something with you. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so I think there was some cautious optimism, a little skeptical of whether it would ever, actually come to life.
If you had a nickel for every time somebody wanted to do it, we should do this movie. I'm doing this, doing that.
Exactly.
It's like, all right, man, let me know when it's filming.
Exactly. So that's kind of how, we went back, we shared stuff with him along the way. I would go out to Nashville every once in a while and see him, or I would be in New York, doing business, and he would be there playing, and I would kind of go see him and say, what's up? And
did you have the script or just the idea?
Just the idea and the kind of treatment and lookbook, like pretty outlined, pretty fleshed out. And once he gave us the thumbs up, we did like some sort of little, short deal memo with his team or whatever. He's not super into contracts and paperwork and all that kind of stuff, so we kept it kind of short and sweet. As he says, he doesn't want to go to town and do the meetings and all that kind of stuff. So
it's true. Wow.
Yeah. So and then maybe within a couple months after that, the script was done and we started the casting process. So for a film, that part was like extremely accelerated. It went from an idea to casting like within, 5 months or something like that, which is pretty quick. But then along the way, obviously with COVID, we've had some other delays and stuff like that. So it's kind of now back on a normal kind of 4-year kind of cycle of getting a project done. Because
is this the first movie you've taken from start to finish?
It is the first feature film, and major release like this. It's being released nationwide today. I've done some other stuff. We produced a documentary at our company called DMT, The Spirit Molecule. That's Joe Rogan is like the star and host of or not the star, but like the host and kind of narrator of it. It's about DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is the drug that is in ayahuasca and it exists in your brain, exists in plants. That documentary in the book that it was based on kind of kicked off this ayahuasca and DMT kind of craze that happened like over the past 10 years where people are, going out to Joshua Tree.
Have you done that?
I haven't done it at all. It's funny. I've done my share of psychedelics. And so I had a really good sense of kind of what it was about. This guy that was working with us at the time had done it once and was like, blew his mind. He got the rights to the book. He's like, I have to make this documentary. So we went down this path of making it. And I was like, okay, as a producer, I'm going to not do it till we make this documentary so I can be the kind of the eyes and ears of a person who's never done it before.
Right.
But I was very curious and interested. And I was like, okay, when we're done with the documentary, then I'll take it for a spin. But after kind of doing the documentary and kind of watching our buddy who kind of got really kind of obsessed with that kind of situation, I was like, I'll leave it for him to do, and I'll decide not to do it for now. Not that I won't ever do it, but haven't done it yet.
I kind of felt the same way. Whenever I hear about it, I think Todd told me about it one time too.
Yeah,
and it sounds heavy.
Yeah, I think it is super heavy. And the weird thing is it only lasts like 10. I mean, if you do ayahuasca, it lasts forever. It's like peyote or whatever. But if you do just the DMT, it like only lasts like 10 minutes. But they say that it feels like eons. So that part sounds pretty cool and also a little frightening at the same time.
If I remember correctly, like Todd, I think was telling me, see spirits, like you see people,
alien, feline gods, lizard god, alien, feline, lizard gods made of energy and geometric patterns. And they speak to you telepathically.
That's a trip.
And you are them at the same time that they're speaking to you telepathically. So
you're freaking me out.
Exactly.
So how did you get, what's the process like just being an independent filmmaker?
It's a challenge, man. I super fortunate. I have a production company that I started 19 years ago. And I do national TV commercials and big brand stuff. So I've had been very fortunate to have a successful career doing, big ads for, big major ad agencies and big major brands, Ford and Nissan and Burger King and, Vegas tourism and Bahamas tourism and Texas tourism and,
so it's
all sorts of stuff. Starbucks, we've done
churning machine already.
Yeah. So there is this company that exists that I started when I was 25. And I love doing commercials. I love doing short form stuff because it's like you get a project and 3 weeks later you're done with it and move on. And you get to kind of experiment with like the latest technology. The budgets are usually pretty healthy, so you get paid fairly well. And also you're not having to scrap to pull it all together. I just did a shoot a couple months ago and down in Costa Rica. I got to go to Costa Rica for 2 months and hang out and do a commercial. So that was cool. So I've been doing this a long time and done some other smaller kind of independent, like we did a pilot that didn't end up going, and we've done the documentary I mentioned, but this was the first time. And I've been trying to get projects off the ground for, a decade probably. Various fits and starts, and you get an actor who wants to do it, and then all of a sudden they're not available again anymore, and then you have to start over kind of thing. But it's super like the music industry. It's just a really challenging time right now. Obviously not to mention all the COVID stuff, but just even prior to that, it's the industry has changed a lot. People don't sell records anymore, right?
Right.
On the commercial side of our business, people don't really watch television anymore. They stream everything with no commercials. So that's happening. And then on the film side, just everything going to streaming and like.
So how does streaming work for independent film stuff? Like, it's
an interesting time. Right now it's sort of undermining a little bit, not unlike how streaming undermined the music business to some extent, right? Indie films primarily they're independently financed, and then you take them to the marketplace, and the marketplace will buy them. Historically, it's been through theaters, right? Art house theaters, and stuff like that. So there are distributors like ours, Roadside Attractions, that's successful taking movies to movie theaters, building that awareness and audience. And then by the time that happens, then the streamers license it from you, and it plays on all the streaming platforms and stuff like that. But what's kind of happened is, because they've become so powerful, and especially exacerbated by COVID, people aren't supporting going to movie theaters to see smaller movies as much anymore. It's like dominated by Marvel movies and big tentpole movies and stuff like that. And so there's this weird kind of place in the industry right now where it's like hasn't quite settled out for smaller kind of films and stuff like that. So
just
theatrical is important, basically, or you get lost in the kind of graveyard of like all the stuff that's just on streaming.
And does Netflix pay a fee, or is it just usage?
It's a fee generally. So what's happening is they're producing more and more of their own shows and not acquiring other things as much, right? They still acquire some, but like they want to own it all outright. It's become a situation where they used to license the films and put them on, and then the films will revert back to the artist and the people who made them, and studios or production companies and whatnot. But now, because their long-term goal is to own as much stuff as they can. So they're making it themselves. They pay you to do it, and then they own it in perpetuity, basically. So it's like
like in music, anybody can just you can get access. You can put your stuff on Spotify.
Yeah.
And Spotify then pays based on how much people listen to it.
Yeah. A couple pennies on every time.
Whatever it is. But anybody can do it. But not anybody can put their movie on Netflix.
Not on Netflix at all. Yeah, no, there are platforms you can, like iTunes, has, movies and stuff. And so that platform you can, and then Amazon is a little confusing because they have their own kind of originals and stuff like that. That's more like Netflix, but then they also have you can put it on there. So it's like a transactional situation where somebody can buy your movie or rent your movie, just like you could, buy an album on iTunes or, what have you.
So anybody can go, if I just put in Hard Luck Love Song.
Yeah. Eventually we will be available there. We're not available there now. And part of what that is like this exclusivity kind of building awareness is like we're in theaters, and that's sort of like a great check mark saying, hey, this is a legit movie. It got theatrical distribution from a really great distributor, and you have to actually kind of go see it in a theater. And what that does is just kind of raises the kind of prestige level of it a little bit more.
Right.
So by the time it gets to those other places, people are like, oh, I remember that. That was in theaters. It got reviews, it did all those other things, where sometimes if you just go straight to streaming, it's like, remember back in the Blockbuster days, there were the straight to video movies that were kind of like, you're like, I don't remember this movie. Where did this Wesley Snipes movie come from? Or whatever, And
it was normally low rent.
Kind of B-movie kind of stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. So that same model sort of exists. And so like going the theatrical route, like we're doing with this great distributor, is they did, like, this distributor did Mud, that Matthew McConaughey movie.
Oh yeah.
They did Peanut Butter Falcon that came out a couple years ago with Shia LaBeouf. That's really great. They did Winter's Bone, another great kind of Americana-esque movie. They're doing movies that are kind of in our wheelhouse, and they've been really successful distributing movies like ours to, it's not just the coast. Our movie will play on the coast, but like to, kind of the South and kind of
how many theaters will it be in?
It's in 200 theaters. So,
wow.
Which is probably medium, like moderate amount. There are certainly movies that have far less, and then the Marvel movies have 3,000 plus or whatever. They're in, multiple screens in every theater across the country. So it's not, obviously not that level, but 200 is pretty good for a movie this size.
And so what will gauge success? Like how do you know, how will you know that this is
good question. It's kind of, this weekend is kind of opening weekend, right? So it's like what the box office does this weekend kind of determines kind of domino effect of how much licensing fees we get from the streamers and television and all those other kind of things down the road. So like what you do is you put all the focus on this weekend, get everyone out to the theaters that you can, and it'll stay in theaters for a while. But like the real big, it's kind of like an album. It's like that opening, day you launch it is like where you're going to probably do half of your, kind of business. And then hopefully word of mouth builds and people keep, continuing to do it. But yeah, we're all in all in for this weekend.
Are the actors in town?
Some of, most of them are based in LA. A couple actors who are there's one actor named Randall Reeder who's coming in for this, event that we're doing tonight. He's going to be there tonight.
What did he play?
He's Bump, the big, huge, like the largest human.
That big dude.
Yeah. And he was in Deadpool, if you've ever seen that.
Oh, yeah.
Movie, Deadpool. They refer to him as Fat Gandalf in that movie.
I think.
Yeah. So he's amazing. And he's based here in Texas and does a bunch of stuff here in Texas. So he's going to be there tonight in Austin at the thing we're doing. And then we're going, Allison, my producing partner and wife, and I are flying to LA tomorrow morning and doing it all over again in LA. And we're going to have Eric Roberts there, and a handful of other actors are going to be there. Some of our main actors.
I just saw Dermot.
Dermot's awesome. Yeah.
On
Righteous Gemstones or.
I just saw him on some talk show.
Oh, Barstool Sports, maybe?
No, it's called The Talk. It was he wasn't there, but anyway,
interesting. He did some sort of Barstool Sports thing for us on the movie, which was cool.
Did he?
I haven't seen it yet, but he did it the other day. He's amazing. He's actually in North Carolina. I think he's doing Righteous Gemstones, that's right, Danny McBride thing. I know he was in that because he flew straight from our movie to that with that fucked up haircut, and they had to figure out how to make that work since he was playing a preacher in that movie or show.
Yeah.
So he's in North Carolina, and then Sophia Bush is off in Canada doing her new TV series for CBS, I think, one of the big networks.
Man, she was great in this movie.
Yeah, she's really, really, really killer. The chemistry between her and Michael Dorman, the lead actor, is just kind of off the charts.
Now, where do I know Michael Dorman from?
So he is actually from New Zealand. He's a Kiwi. Worked in Australia for a long time and was a pretty successful actor there. And then he was on a show called Patriot on Amazon that if you haven't seen it, I highly encourage people to check it out. It's how we found him, actually. His manager sent over the pilot episode of Patriot before the series launched. And he plays this like undercover spy, CIA kind of assassin. And he's off in Europe doing hits on people and stuff like that. And he can't tell anybody what he does. He's undercover. So what he does for his therapy is he plays folk music in coffee shops and kind of sings about what he's up to. It's kind of like his mental health regime.
So that's him singing and playing.
That's him singing and playing. And in Patriot,
he can really play.
Oh my God, he's incredible. They sent over the pilot to Patriot several years ago when we were casting. We were meeting with a bunch of actors, a bunch of musicians, who were crossing over into acting. And his manager sent this over and we watched it. About halfway through the episode, him and his dad play If I Needed You, the Townes Van Zandt song. And Allison, my wife and I, producing partner, just looked at each other and we're like, this is the guy.
Yeah.
And actually she walked down the aisle to that song, If I Needed You. So it was like extra perfect. And he's an incredible actor, incredible musician, and he fucking shoots pool lights out in this movie, which is another thing. It was like, needle in the haystack. We need an incredible actor who can play music and also shoot pool and make it really believable and do some incredible pool work. So,
well, he did.
Yeah.
And Sophia Bush
she's great.
She's amazing.
Yeah. She's a huge network television actor, right? She's kind of headlined One Tree Hill, which was like her big show.
Okay.
And then Chicago PD was her other big show. And so we hadn't ever seen her do anything quite like this, where it's like a little grittier and edgier. And so we thought this is a great opportunity to kind of go in the opposite direction of what people expect for her. And we know she can do it. She's really talented. And she really worked hard on it.
I'm not sure that I even knew who she was before, but she kind of has a Diane Lane quality about her.
Yeah. And that raspy voice of hers is really incredible.
And just the way you lit the movie and kind of darker. And she looks fantastic.
Yeah. She's great. Yeah. She's huge. She's got, it's a generation that's like a little bit younger than me. That is like her show, One Tree Hill, is like what Beverly Hills 90210.
I remember that show
was to kind of my generation. Right. So she's like so well known from that. I think she has like 4 million Instagram followers or something like that. She's, just huge social media presence and really beloved, like her rabid fans.
That's great.
Come out in force.
So what's the budget on something like this?
Like a little bit over $1 million, which is a fraction of what, these kind of movies typically cost.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of money, obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But like Star is Born was like a $50 million movie, just to kind of give some perspective. Obviously that's a much bigger movie, but we're a fraction of, what something like that.
And do you go about raising money or just investors or
independent financing? Yeah. I mean, fortunately, because as I mentioned, our company's been fairly successful over the years. Like part of the reason we made this movie was because it was kind of a little bit more contained and we had some money earmarked to help finance this. And then we had some great family friends, investors who all kind of pitched in for kind of the finishing funds to get it over the finish line there. So yeah, I was.
And how many hats do you wear?
A lot. Too many, probably.
Were you in charge of all the music?
We had a great music supervisor and a guy named Dan Wilcox, who's a DJ at KCRW in Los Angeles, which is like our great public radio station out there. So he was a music supervisor, very helpful and part of it. And then we had a great editor named Jay Davis, who's very musically driven as well. So it's kind of like the three of us, kind of handling a lot of the music. I wrote a lot of the music into the script.
Right.
Like the Graham Parsons, Emmylou Harris song, like that was written into the script, like the Daniel Johnston song. That
I kept hearing little lines that were from songs.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's Easter eggs buried galore. We got Chris, in there. He says, Skip says, sounds like you've been reading my mail from.
That's right.
Yeah. That whole scene in the bar at the end is like basically modeled after To Beat the Devil and Ballad of the Devil's Backbone Tavern, Todd's song. So like I took those
come over here, you little punk, or
yeah, you little shit. Yeah, that's from Todd's song, Old Miss Virgie. Yeah, and so I kind of took those two songs and was like, okay, I'm gonna work this into like this scene that needs to happen in the movie, but then like give it this texture and these Easter eggs of all this like great, kind of troubadour singer songwriter stuff. So,
well, the movie's fantastic.
Thank you.
I got the link this morning and watched it from 7:30 in the morning, and you just disappear into it.
Yeah,
it's really phenomenal.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that's it means a lot. I made it for people like you.
Well, it's really easy to screw that kind of stuff up.
Yes,
when you're trying to deal with music and deal with how to make it be seamless without coming off as Dear Diary bullshit.
Yeah.
Or, fake language.
Yeah.
Like
so many of them are hokey, man. Like
they have people getting pissed off at sound check. Like nobody ever gets pissed off at sound check or whatever it is.
Sure.
But it really is seamless. You did great.
Thanks. It's funny. I just remembered this while we were sitting here. The time that I flew out to Portland to meet with Todd, he was like asking, if we wanted him to be in it and, that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, yes, we'd love for you to be in the movie. But I was thinking we'll cast, an actor who can play music because this is a big, heavy lift from an acting standpoint. He's like, good, because I don't think I could do it. But Jack Ingram, he studied acting. He would be someone you should consider. and he's like, and Hayes did too. Yeah. You should talk to Hayes and Jack. And I was like, that's a good idea.
I did expect to see Todd in there or something.
We were scheduled to have him come in, but I think at the last minute something came up and schedule didn't work out. Kind of true to his story, we were going to have him playing acoustic guitar in the band and step up and sing "Don't It Make You Want to Dance."
It would have been perfect.
Yeah, that was the plan. We had.
Who is that?
That's a band called the Mojo Monkeys, and some of those guys have like Taraz, the bass player in that band, was Dwight Yoakam's bass player forever, and also toured with Lucinda. And I think now maybe he's playing with Richard Thompson or somebody like that. So like those are like,
it sounded legit.
Yeah. And they recorded those songs. Some of those songs were, a couple of those songs were my buddy Lucas Hudgens, who's a Austin honky tonker he's been out on the road with Charlie Crockett right now, but he wrote some of those songs, and we had that band record them and then kind of play them back in the scene. Some of them are their songs, and then obviously the Rusty Weir song made famous by Jared Jeff, and I guess Chris Ledoux did it too. But
I did it. Todd's done it.
Yeah,
Jared Jeff did it.
Yeah,
I think Bonnie Raitt did a version.
Really? Wow, I have to check that one out.
I think. But yeah,
it's such a great song.
It is a great song.
Yeah. So that was the idea, was that we'd have Todd kind of step out of the shadows and sing that one. But I think there was something going on tour and some other stuff that just the schedule didn't work out. So
I love it that Todd's pitching me for movies though. That's good. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah. It was pretty cute, actually.
It is interesting, whenever scripts come along or whatever, you realize just how skilled you have to be to either just a complete natural, or it really is a skill set.
Oh my God. It is a craft. It is a serious craft. I think people, it's they get to, the average person sees actors, jet setting around and doing red carpets and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, they just show up and look pretty and, say their lines. And man, that's not what they do. It is so much more than that. They have to tap into like real emotions, and they have to keep them there kind of on the surface at all times to be able to kind of do it. It's a very, very challenging kind of, it is a trade and a craft. It is not unlike playing music.
It's funny because every time I see, like, not to diss on anybody, but the actors that start bands, and it's always just a little off.
Yep.
And so it's whenever I get asked to do acting stuff, I'm always like, hey man, let's have respect for that craft, because I've seen the reverse.
Yeah.
Actors trying to be troubadours, and it's like, it's passable.
Yeah. It's usually all passable. It's just, and I don't want to name any names or anything like that, but it's always usually just like, it's okay. It doesn't have the soul. It doesn't have the soul in it.
Right. It's like, why can't you sing the way you act? You're so believable.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that it's the same on the reverse side from my side.
Yeah. Who transitions well are the hip hop guys. Like in our movie, RZA from Wu-Tang Clan, like well, first of all, he's a musical genius, but he's also he's a director in his own right. He's directed some incredible movies himself. And then like every time I see him pop up as a little character actor in these movies, like he's so good. And he came through in spades for us. He was
killer.
Amazing. But yeah, we were looking at actors who have little side bands and stuff like that. And we were down the road with some musicians who've crossed over. There's some that can pull it off.
There are some.
Yeah.
I mean, and it has to do with so much of that stuff. If you're going to do it a couple times, it's so dependent on the role.
Absolutely.
Being a natural fit.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to have as much of a set of skills.
Yeah, it's not a stretch. Yeah. Or the ones that end up maybe like, you see it with the hip hop guys, because hip hop is a short window, right? And so their careers kind of end, and then they end up transitioning into film or television. And some of them do quite well. But it's kind of a little bit of a different thing.
So whatever happened to the other movie you were making?
Still in the back pocket. So hopefully we're going to make that one at some point.
Were you already shooting it?
No, we had been out casting a couple times, and had some actors, some fairly well-known actors who were interested in doing it. And what happens when you're making a small independent movie is you're sort of kind of second fiddle to their big studio paydays and stuff like that. So you get one on board, and that even happened on Hard Luck Love Song. You get one on board, and then all of a sudden Marvel comes knocking, or whoever, and is like, hey, we got this, big thing. And they have to take those, it's really important usually for them to take those. So then they have to take those, and then you're waiting. And then what happens inevitably is you wait, and then all of a sudden something else comes up, and then, ends up kind of falling apart. It's a real jigsaw puzzle to get one going. There's so many, you have to get all the pieces.
Because you can't just do it 30-day shoot or whatever.
No, I mean, our movie was actually only a 20-day shoot, but you have to get one piece committed, and then another piece committed, and then another piece committed, and another piece committed, and then another piece committed. Like you have to get all these things to commit and firm up all at the same time. And if one falls out, it's like Jenga or something. Like it starts to get pretty shaky, and then another one falls out, and then all of a sudden the whole thing topples over, and then you're starting over. And so it's a real challenge. Now, this happens on the studio level too. If you got deep pockets, it's kind of a different scenario.
Right.
You're buying their time.
Now, how many different sets did you have to have for this movie? I'm trying to remember.
It's
like you had the motel room,
which is like 40% of the movie probably, or something. And so that was a big key piece for us. We actually found that maybe 18 months before we even shot the film. It
found that motel?
Yeah. It was in
what's it called?
The Tumble Inn is what it's called in the movie. It's down in Long Beach. And it's this old like 1960s mid-century kind of rundown, motel. We actually found it. There's Leon Bridges has a video for his great song, The River, that was on that first big hit album that he had. Mm-hmm. And we knew some people who had worked on it. So we were like scouring here in Texas and in New Mexico and Louisiana and Georgia and California. We were scouring for these types of motels. And a crew member friend of ours was like, I worked on this Leon Bridges video a couple months ago. You should check it out. And we watched the video, and we're like, that's the motel. And it pretty much, we looked at 100 more and never found anything better. So
who plays the cop?
That's a guy named Brian Sacca, and he's a super talented dude.
I've never seen a cop portrayed that way.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
It's a trip.
Yeah. He was in The Wolf of Wall Street. He's one of those kind of troublesome, douchey brokers that works for Leo DiCaprio in the firm in that movie. So yeah, he's a super sweet dude, really talented. He's a writer as well. Like he wrote a movie that came out like last year or something. So
oh really?
Yeah, he's a good dude, and he's really funny. And yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because he's like the comic relief of the movie, but he's also has this kind of lonely, kind of poignant side to him as well. So it's like this real balance of being able to kind of strike both things at the same time. And
it was an interesting. I've never seen a police officer portrayed with such
sadness or something.
Yeah, like some kind of weight and softness.
Yeah,
because he's coming in there to bust him and ends up wanting to hang out with him.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought, inspiration from Todd's song to some extent, like, in the song, the guy like lets him go or whatever. And so I was like, well, maybe take that a step further. What if he actually is like, man, some friends, I can hang out. So yeah, that was fun. And he's he's a talented dude, that Brian Sack. He's really funny. So, and I do a lot of improv comedy commercials, and he kind of comes from that kind of improv comedy kind of world. So the stuff we did with him, like literally I'm like next to the camera going, try this. And we're just like throwing stuff back and forth, like riffing, and kind of, he's just real quick on his feet, kind of come up with something funny. And, you know, like when you knock that can off with the thing, and like just weird stuff. It's like you're intimidated, but this guy's not intimidating. And like, and yeah, one of the themes of the movie is like this idea of like, we're all kind of on our own, right? We're looking for human connection and, you know, connection to humanity and stuff. And it's embodied through the main characters, Jesse and Carla, obviously. But like, I kind of tried to carry that over. Like the Officer Zach character is this kind of lonely guy looking for connection. And even like the Lewis character that RZA plays, like, you know, it's kind of a misdirect. You think one thing, and then it's kind of revealed it's not quite that. It's a little bit more complicated than that. And then he's heroic for a second, and then he's like scary for a good amount. And then we reveal he's actually getting his heart broken in this situation. And it's like a little bit more complicated than what your eye maybe tells you at first.
That's right.
So try to carry over that theme. And then we kind of reversed it with Dermot Mulroney and his guys. Like Dermot Mulroney's got all the friends, you know, and he's like the real scumbag guy. So we kind of tried to reverse some of those.
Well, man, the movie's fantastic.
Thank you.
And congratulations on getting it done, first of all. But the second of all, you know, for a guy like me, it's one of my best friend's songs.
Absolutely.
And so I was going to watch it regardless. And when these things can be so hit and miss.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, once I started watching about halfway through, it's like, holy shit, this is for real.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a judge, but
yeah. Thank you.
I was just pleasantly, the music is integrated into it. The Hayes Carl song comes out of nowhere. Like there's just all kinds of fun things that happen.
Yeah.
That don't turn into camp.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah, it was fun. And like, yeah, the first half of the movie feels like almost like a 70s kind of character drama that, you know.
Yeah, and it's moving at it's not a snail's pace, but
slow burn.
You got to just be patient.
Yeah.
And then it's like it kicks in and you start to really know these characters, and it's congratulations.
Thanks, man.
So everybody, this is the director and writer, filmmaker, Justin Corsbie.
How's it going?
And Hard Luck Love Song is based on a Todd Snyder song, Just Like Old Times. And he's made a really cool movie. You guys should check it out.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, man.